Eastern region event. I've heard fantastic things about him. He actually is real in the flesh. This is him. To tell you a little bit about Andrew, I didn't know this. Very impressive upbringing in our Vector business. Started with Vector in 2006. I'm assuming it was in Chicago.
Yeah, it was in Chicago and
Under Mike Uriel. You know Mike, a region manager now in Central. As a sales rep, he sold $60,000 his first summer. Not bad. Number 5 All-American in the country. He was a 2-time branch manager. The first time Andrew branched, he finished number 7 in the nation. It's pretty impressive. The second time he finished number 1. Won the Silver Cup. He was a Silver Cup branch manager. By the way, it wasn't even close. I think he beat the number 2 branch manager by over 60%. He went district in his first 8 months or first 12 months, but it was in that first competitive category. They just entered $500,000 to finish number 2 in the Silver Cup race. So very impressive track record of high-level performance as a sales rep, as a branch, also as a new district manager. He leveraged his Vector experience into an opportunity with another company in 2011 where he became senior operations manager in India for this company, where he was given 200 employees to manage. Within 5 years, they grew from 200 employees to 1,500 employees and increased revenue by 500%. Now, in his work as a speaker and as a coach, he helps people searching for greater business results to align their values, their vision, and their purpose to their work so they can not only achieve great results, but also enjoy the process as well. Mike Abramowitz and Andrew Evans are just 2 examples of managers who have benefited tremendously from his coaching, from his mentorship. Let's give him a warm welcome all the way from Fayetteville, Arkansas, his new home, Mr. Andrew Biggs.
Well, thank you all for having me, and just I'm super humbled to have this opportunity to address you guys, and especially to have this time together. I really just kind of like the fact that this is a very highly curated room. You know, we're talking to some top-level people here, and you guys are capable of picking up a lot of high-level concepts. So my goal for this part of the conversation, we're going to talk about purpose, values, vision, big picture stuff a little bit, but I also want to kind of have this be a roll-up-the-sleeves sort of workshop, have it be a lot of Q&A and some design work as well, so we can get a lot done, because we have a lot of big topics we want to try to cover here, just so you guys know. But before we do, I do think it's important to do at least a little bit of vision casting, right? Because I don't know where everyone's at in this room. Obviously, all you guys are really talented individuals. But maybe you're coming into this room, you're having an awesome fall, you're super pumped, you can't wait to get back to your office, you guys are rocking and rolling. Maybe not, I don't know. And what I do know is that a Vector summer is the most exciting time for a Vector manager, at least from a CEO perspective, in terms of an income earning perspective. And so what I want to do is actually paint a vision with you guys, and we're going to do a little bit of a journaling exercise here to start, and then we're going to get into the nuts and bolts. Does that sound good?
Yep.
All right, cool. So my first thing I want you guys to do, we're going to do a quick journaling exercise. So imagine, with me if you will, that's August 2020, and you're walking in with your team to Conference of Champions. Having spent the last 10 months showing up at your absolute best following the Olean conference. I really appreciate what Scott said about this can be a transformational event. And my goal, by the way, I'll mention this during the keynote as well, is to provide life-changing content for you all. Right? So I'm not here just to try to kick the can down the road and try to, give some sort of marginally improved system for you guys. I want to try to have this be a life-changing event for you guys. And that is the possibility. So you've been more committed than ever to next-level leadership, personal excellence, and systemizing your business more than you ever thought possible. Now let me ask you, what does your team look and feel like heading into the conference? How many people are there with you? How much have you sold for the summer? And what sort of culture have you created? And how does it feel? Let's just take a few minutes to paint the vision, paint the picture for yourself. What does it feel like walking into Conference of Champions? What's that experience like? Tunes on. You just had your best summer ever, with the most development ever. You created the best office culture you've ever created? How many people are on your team showing up to the conference? A little funky. What are your top branches showing up like? What's your top rep at? What do you guys got in sales heading into the conference? What did you end up doing for the push? $1 million summer? 750? 500K? What'd you hit? What'd you hit for the SE2 push? What sort of swagger does your team have showing up? Who pulls you aside at the conference? It's like, dude, impressive. What have you been doing this summer, man? What's your DVM have to say to you? What's God have to say to you? Growing your business by 20%, 30%, 50%, 100% year over year. What's possible? Give yourself permission. Just let the pen write itself. What sort of values does your team have? What are they embody? Strength, courage, resolve, fun, competition, leadership, compassion, connection, camaraderie. What's important to your team? Just a couple more minutes. You're doing great. How do you feel knowing that you decided you're going to make it your best year ever? You're going to make it a quantum leap year. Six more seconds. All right, just letting whatever sentence you're on naturally come to a close. And now what we're going to do is we're going to just take the opportunity to have you guys partner up real quick, just with the person next to you. And for 90 seconds each, you're going to share your vision, right? Just to kind of make it real, and just to see what comes of it. So find the person next to you. I think there's, if we count Scott, there's an even number. So go ahead and person A, go ahead and touch person B. Right? Person A, you're going to start. Go ahead.
So talking about Mason bringing his crew, return branch, Mason Linker, his team of 8 to 10 TLA candidates, bringing his crew to 300+ K summer, competing for Silver Cup. Lindsay Lindstrom bringing her crew, pacing towards Madrid, having her 2 to 3 little babies that she created, and then the Tampa team just finishing up what will be $1 million summer effort, and doing something here. I think about back from Austin to Fairfax and his pilot office of camaraderie, culture, department heads, sales leadership, pacing towards 7 to 10 on there, some scouts yeah, in my office. And just developed 30 plus candidates.
I have trouble journaling. People are talking, I couldn't concentrate. Think about coming off of 2020 in general. Big January, massive shot, 3 back-to-back training seminars, the dates lined up perfect. Doing it this spring. I've got a crew assistant manager, and my top dom. Just kind of struggling with whether he wants to go EM or stay Navy, and just thinking about that being a transformation event and being able to have some team lead and help people like he wants to help people. You got Will, my
34 seconds.
But having a solid summer. I don't think record breaking, but I think personal performance breakthrough. Building skill set and it'll be multiple time races, building my office, consistency, have a strong finish.
Next year? For district team.
Let's go ahead and let the section come to a close. Give an awesome fist bump to your partner. Say thank you very much. All right. So real quick, how was that?
It was fun.
Good. Awesome. I'd like to get like a couple of group shares, just like whoever feels like super inspired right now, or was, kind of felt like something came through during this exercise.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I feel like at this moment, it really gave me some even more clarity. But Mason Linker competing for that silver cup, bringing double digits of his development, and Lindsay Holstrom, bringing her little crew, pacing towards Madrid, and our pilot, my home office, just oozing with development. 7 to 10 All-American candidates that really locked arms with each other to try to win a scholarship this summer. 7 to 10 people making over 5 figures this summer, and just having 30 plus TLA candidates next fall, and just finishing off what will be potential for record-breaking district team sales, which was set back at like 2.6 million. So we'll be pacing towards over 2 million, and then setting ourselves up for 2021, where we could chase down that record. Maybe even doing over 3 million. Who knows? I mean, the momentum's behind us, and this just helped me just like, all right, let me just keep building while it's going well.
Nice. Yeah. Sound very exciting? Yeah. Let's do one more. Who else?
I put SC2 now CFC because we didn't have an CFC, but I put being an SC2 with over 175 to 100 people. We're very excited for TLA. We have 200 people in SC2 in the entire island. Christina's having a breakthrough summer. Claudia's selling over 150, Patricia over 200, and all my other new branches and new districts way over 100. The island's pumping energy. Jeff is just stunned by the sheer quality of Puerto Ricans in one room. And it's giving us a way bigger budget for conferences.
Awesome. That sounds like a fun party. 200 Puerto Ricans in one room. We're having a great conference. It sounds very fun. Thanks for sharing. Daniel? Sorry? David. You got the comment. Sorry. I apologize. All right, awesome. Well, I hope that all of you guys are inspired by just the opportunity to take a look forward and to paint that picture, right, of what's possible next summer. And that's kind of the exciting part, right? But, there's a little bit of a catch. Okay? So here's the thing. You're currently not good enough to make that happen. Scott. Sorry, Scott. He's upset. You're currently not good enough to make that happen, right? So I'm glad that we're there, right? We're like, okay, this is what's possible. I could have 7 to 10 All-Americans. I could have 200 people in one room. This amazing atmosphere, this amazing feel for my office, this amazing culture, right? But you're currently not good enough to make that happen. And how do I know? Because if you were, you would have done it last conference champions. You haven't grown that much in the last few months, right? Maybe you've grown a little bit, right? And kudos to you. But really what we want to try to do is give you guys the tools, the skill sets, everything that you need to actually make that vision a reality, right? Because a vision that you're not capable of creating is really just a fantasy, right? Who's ever found themselves in like vector fantasy land, right? So you talk to every district manager right around this time. What are they going to sell next year? $1 million, right? You know, then you talk to them kind of like September, October. They're like, yeah, next year. That's okay. Like, I get it. It's like, can we figure out a way to actually make it happen, right? Some of you guys in this room have made that happen. Some of you guys are on the way to making that happen. That's fantastic. And what we don't want to do is delude ourselves into thinking that, oh, next year's my year just because, I don't know, I haven't really grown that much, I'm not really changing much, but next year's my year. Right? That's delusion. What we want is to have confidence that next year you can sell $1 million. You want to have confidence. I'm not saying don't go after it, right? What I'm saying is give yourself, actually prepare like for battle. Prepare like you're going in for the toughest battle of your life. Because that's what you're doing. You want to do something you've never done before, you're going to have to prepare differently than you've ever done it before. Right? So I want every single person in this room to have $1 million a year or more. Right? That would go a long way to helping Scott and the region hit their goal of $40 million. If every single person in this room had $1 million a year. Imagine that. Right? You guys can probably invite me back too. That'd be fantastic. but the reality is, right, we have to prepare as if we're going in for the battle of our lives, right? So here's the agenda. Like I said, we really want to cover a lot of ground today about some high-level thinking. We're going to talk about culture, right? Where it all begins. What is your team's culture? What are they embodying? What are they a reflection of? We're going to talk about personal excellence and how that plays into things, right? We all know that your office is downstream from how you show up on a daily basis. So we're going to talk about personal excellence. Hopefully you guys can see the screen. We're going to talk about a concept I call next level leadership. And I'm going to introduce a concept called the meta game. I think you guys are really going to like that one. I don't know if even you guys have learned that yet. We'll see. The next one we're going to talk about is systems creation and deployment, which is one of my favorite things to talk about. One of the biggest areas of growth, I think, for each and every one of you guys is systemizing your business as much as possible, right? And figuring out a way to run your business in a very sort of corporatized way, right? Not in a sanitary way where there's like this distance. Like we like the camaraderie, we like the feel, we like the energy and the youth and the exuberance, right? But we really want to be systemizing the business as much as possible so it's predictable, right? And so that, quite frankly, you guys can actually have less skilled people in positions doing the work, right? So I'll talk about that a little bit later, but the tighter the system, the less skilled you need the individual to be to execute the system, right? That's why McDonald's is able to pay somebody $7 an hour, or I guess maybe $10 an hour, whatever it is, to drop fries, right? Because it's very specific about what it is that is actually going on, and they have a manual, right? And it's documented, they're trained, there's a process for that. And then lastly, we're going to talk about driving KPIs through metrics and efficiency, and really just running a numbers-based business. So let's start with culture. And here's my theory about culture, is that culture should inform everything about your business. Culture is kind of the business in the abstract, if you will. So what should be informed by culture? What I mean by this is, let's just see if we can make a list here. I'll pull up the whiteboard. And so if you have a particular culture, who has a cultural value they're willing to throw out? One or two? Yeah. Excellence, great. What are a couple others? Cultural value of your office. Abundance, great.
Camaraderie.
Camaraderie, great. So, whatever that is, say that again?
Never give it up.
Never giving up, right? So, whatever it is that is the cultural values for your office, every aspect of your business should be informed by those values. So, for instance, if you have a culture of excellence, well then that should be exuded in how you dress, right? Because excellence is a cultural value, so obviously it should be reflected in your attire, right? If you have a culture of excellence, what else would you expect to be a reflection of that excellence? So I just throw out one, but what are some other examples? Results. Yeah, right. Yeah, you can hold people accountable to higher results, right? Go ahead. What else?
I think language.
Language. Yeah, totally. What else?
I think just your office. Like, what does your office look like?
Exactly. Office. Right? The feel, the look, the location. Right? Are there papers on the floor? Is it disorganized? The level of organization. Hopefully you guys can read this. Right? The level of cleanliness in the office. Right? Because when I walk in for an interview, right, I'm feeling the culture immediately. Right? As soon as I have a phone call with you or one of your people, I'm immediately sensing the culture from the PR phone call, from the language, right, of what that person is saying, the vibe, the style, what you guys are like. Right? So culture has to inform everything. Keep going. What else? Anything else coming over you guys? I have a big list. I can pull them out.
And just to clarify, you're saying what values we want our business to have? Or
saying it's a culture of excellence.
Yeah, I'm just saying that no matter what, your office is a reflection, right, of your values. So for instance, your values in the culture should be informing all of these things. Your recruiting strategies, your recruiting tone, your team meeting tone, your behavior at conferences, how you promote things, your training focus. What posters you have on the wall, what sort of programs you run, what sort of social media strategies you employ, and sort of photos you select, and all these different things, right? And what I'm trying to actually try to help you guys see is that really what we're always doing is we're either experiencing culture concentration or culture dilution. You can write that one down. Cultural concentration versus cultural dilution. And so every single time that there's an exchange with a team member, right, on the team, there's either a cultural concentration or cultural dilution. What's an example of a cultural concentration? When, let's say, excellence is part of your culture, when excellence is exuded in that conversation. When is there cultural dilution? When excellence is not exuded in that conversation, right? And if we were to be honest, I'm guessing, for many of you, there are times when the cultural values that you guys uphold and do your best to uphold and claim to have are upheld, and there's other times when they're not. And so we as leaders, as managers, if we really want to take this next step in our business, what we need to do is to make sure that everything in our business is a reflection of our culture. Everything in our business is a reflection of our culture. So you want to be thinking about, where is there cultural dilution? Where somebody's having an experience that's less than optimal. Anytime someone's having a less than optimal conversation on PDI, there's an opportunity to tighten up the culture. Anytime there's a less than optimal experience in the interview, there's an opportunity to tighten up the culture. Anytime somebody's having a less than optimal opportunity, an experience at a team meeting or in training, whatever, there's an opportunity there. And so, by the way, I'll just kind of show you this quick diagram. I did this, hopefully it's not too confusing. You might always want to take a picture. But basically it's like, it begs the question, well, how do we create culture? Right? And I would argue that culture is really a reflection of your personal values as the district manager. So it's like, what are your personal values? Scott shared his personal values at the beginning of his talk. At the beginning of his talk today. And so, what's bound to happen is that some of those cultural values that Scott has are going to find their way into the team culture. So, additionally, what else we're going to be talking about a little bit later is personal excellence. Here I'm using the term adherence, which is really like how in alignment are you actually with your values. You might say your values are this, but are you actually living it? And so that's what actually creates the culture. Now, I've given the opportunity here, since you guys run larger businesses, to kind of let a few other people have seats at the table. There's probably a couple other people who influence culture at your office, right? You might even want to take some time to think about who are the culture setters in the office. Like, who else sets the tone? Right? As you go, and these probably a couple other people, maybe 3, 4 at max, as you 5 people go, so the culture goes. Right? You see Scott nodding his head. He's like, yep, I got it. Me and the DVMs. My DVMs are on point. My region's on point. My DVMs aren't. Culture starts to go astray. That happens. Right? I don't know if it happens here. Probably not. It's like, you guys have to watch who are the culture setters and make sure that their values are aligned and that they're also adhering to it. Right? Because whenever they're out of alignment with their own values and with the team culture's values, then we're going to experience cultural collision. You guys with me so far?
Yeah.
Again, we're getting like conceptual here. Okay? You guys are hanging with me? Good. So, a really good exercise is to figure out what are your top 5 values for your culture, for your team. And really, I should call anybody on your team, whether they just started today, like if they finished training, they should know your top 5 values. If they finished training, I should be able to call them up, be like, hey, in South Charlotte, how do you guys operate? What are your top 5 values there? They should know. That should be the test. So the culture is then what sets the mindset, the attitude, and the style. Yeah, there's like some stylistic elements. Of, we want some uniqueness on our team. What sets us apart? What's our team identity, right? You guys are football fans. Here you guys talking about LSU versus Alabama on the way here. Literally on the walk to the room, it's like, what's the score? Right? Sometimes the commentators are like, this team has lost the team's identity. Right? It's like, what's your team's identity? Do they know? Do you know? It all stems from the culture and from the leadership that's putting that culture in place. So you have the mindset, the attitude, the style. That's going to inform the approach, how they respond to challenges, as well as their style and vibe. And ultimately, that results in the end game that we all want, which is the numbers coming through, the results, as well as the organizational health. We want it done the right way. So I'm just going to share this with you because you are the bellwether, right, as the district manager. As you go, so the culture will go. There might be a couple other players who have some seats at the table in your organization, and that's great. But for the most part, you're going to be the determining factor of the culture. Any questions on this? So then, our job really, at least from a cultural perspective, is to protect the culture. Right? It's a fragile thing. There's always people invading. There's new people coming in. There's old people leaving. Right? We got to get them trained up. The business is chaotic. It's growing rapidly. There's people flying in and out. There's order forms flying everywhere. Right? And there's problems and fires to put out. Right? It's a hectic time, especially during the summer. Our job is to protect the culture. Right? And if you really want to be taking that next level in your business and not be stuck in the business but work on the business, this is a really good lesson. The good news is you guys got about 6 months right before the summer comes. Jan program is probably like a great time to like put in like version 1 of this. Like making sure your culture is set for 2020. You guys get off to a hot start. It'd be great for everyone in this room to be thinking like 100K January, how can I make that happen? So we have to protect the culture. So our job is to avoid culture pollution. We've already talked about that. So you have to become a cultural adherence, obsessed with cultural adherence. And that is, where are we in alignment with the values and where are we not? At any time we see something that's out of alignment, we need to be pointing that out. So anytime we see something that's, let's say someone walks in for an interview and they're not greeted right away. Might seem like a simple thing. But if we're trying to show excellence and professionalism as two of our values, well, that clearly doesn't show that. And it also isn't a very friendly start to how someone's going to, how you're actually being reflected upon by them. So you have to take that opportunity to pull your assistant aside, have a conversation with them. Hey, man, why weren't I greeted? Well, I don't know. I got busy. I got sidetracked. Well, that's how we operate here. Every person has to be greeted every single time. You're in charge of this interview. You know that, right? Yeah, I'm sorry. Okay, don't let it happen again. I appreciate you. Keep going, man. But make sure this happens. Right? You have to, every single time you see something that's out of alignment, you have to call it out. Right? Obviously, the other side of the coin is also effective, right? Which is when you see the culture being exuded, what should you do? You praise it. This is what Muriel kind of taught me. He was like, yeah, it's easy. In training, if you see someone doing what you want them to do, just praise them for it. And if you see someone doing what you don't want them to do, kind of give them a little bit of like social punishment. Right? So, yeah, I wouldn't think, that's probably not what I would do. You see someone doing what they're supposed to, it's like, absolutely, you're exactly right. Praise them. All you're doing there is you're concentrating the culture, and you're not allowing for the dilution. So what I mean here by meet the team where they're at is really just to not come down overly harsh on them, right? Because we have high standards as managers, or at least I hope we do. And they might not have as high standards. And quite frankly, no one's going to have as high standards of you as you. If they do, then you're not leading them. You should have the highest standards for anyone in your office. Right? And so you guys have to hold yourself to the highest standard. Now, sometimes we do need to kind of, crack the whip with our people, but we want to meet them where they're at, right? So that we don't scare them off. And now, another thing that we're going to talk about here. So this is just the second point of that, which is sometimes you're the good cop and sometimes you're the bad cop, right? So always pick your spots. Sometimes it's like, hey, I saw that you missed that. I know I probably didn't do a good enough job telling you why it's important that everyone gets greeted. Put the blame on yourself. It's a great little strategy. Hey, I probably didn't train you good enough on why that's needed. It's a great line. I didn't have those training docs. That's probably on me for not training you on that process. Let me review the documentation with you. Right? This is what I need for training each time. You got it? If they screw up again, then they go back. Right? And obviously, always look in the mirror first. The culture is mostly going to be a reflection of you. And you don't earn the right to call people out and to kind of have them step it up if you're not stepping it up yourself. Right? And by the way, 4 days of you being in alignment is not enough for you to come back in and be like, what's going on, guys? The office is throwing a hell in a handbasket. They're like, yeah, because you've been checked out for last month, Aaron. I haven't for the last 4 days. Yeah, come on, man. You're going to have to work a little harder than that. Always remember the culture is mostly a reflection of your own personal level of adherence. People don't really like that word, adherence. I don't. We're salespeople. We like to break the rules, right? A lot of times. But when we're disciplined, when we can call ourselves out and say, actually, I've been out of alignment with our own value. I need to take a look at the mirror. I need to step it up, right? And make sure that for the next few weeks, I'm in impeccable control of what it is that I'm putting forth. And then maybe I've earned the right to be able to call them out as well. So, I think that this is an interesting concept. Also, I'm just a little curious. I'm not sure how well it's landing. I want to just check the room. Just like a couple shares. Questions on this? Comments? What do you guys think? It's coming up for you. Luke?
I love it. Kind of biggest light bulb for me is just everything is either cultural adherence or cultural illusion. It's like every exchange you have with anyone, any interaction is always added to culture and subtraction. That's that mindset.
Nice.
Yeah, just to echo that, like the premise of the office, how it looks is that embody your culture, like all the little things. Is like, do you have a culture in the office and then you go out, like, I don't know, leave the office and then all of a sudden it's a different culture as soon as you step out. Like I can see how like we have culture in like other areas and all of a sudden like we get certain areas or events or doing activities and then the culture doesn't really matter also.
Yeah. Absolutely. Someone else that I don't know. Okay, I know you. Yeah, Patrick.
A light bulb for me was the culture setters, like identifying those in your organization, making sure that their values of culture are aligned with yours. So this way when you are out of your office, you know that it's like still happening right away.
Absolutely. The truth is that each of you might even have different personalities or even personal values. You might just clash with certain people, right? It's like, even though that person's kind of talented, they're not a great fit to have a high-level position for you, figure out a different way to utilize them. Maybe say, hey, I don't know that being my dom next year is best for you. Like, let's figure out how to get you out to the branch and just figure it out, right? That's a very common thing, but you should watch out for that. Someone else? Amir.
Yes, so just kind of piggybacking off of what Luke said, just adding to it, when you realize that there is cultural delusion, just looking in the mirror first and realizing that it could be a reflection of you and things that you're doing, and looking there to take ownership first.
Thanks. Appreciate that. Anyone else?
Culture is going to form whether you're intentional about forming it or not, and because it's so important, there's a lot more things that we can do to be intentional about. That's my big thing.
Awesome. Thank you. So, no, I'm glad to hear that. I wasn't sure. I'm glad that this is landing for you guys. And one thing I was going to say to Luke and Amir's point about everything being an opportunity for cultural dilution or cultural concentration. I kind of look at it. I have a 4-year-old. Does anyone else have kids in the room? Just me and Scott. All right. Scott understands.
Oh, really good.
But I'm sure you guys will get it, right? And that is, we're trying to raise him to teach him certain values, right, as well. And every time I am sure to point out and I'm consistent with something I've told him in the past, what does that do? It reinforces it, right? And raising kids is not the easiest thing to do either. There's been plenty of times where I've told him something, right? No tablet time, bro. Like, you gotta give me the tablet, right? And then we've gone back on our word as parents. And then what does that do? He's like, yeah, like I'm gonna trust you guys, right? It's like you guys are inconsistent. So I know I can push you guys around, even at 4, right? We're very intuitive like that. And so inconsistency, we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but you guys can write this down. Inconsistency, to Andrew's point, is the kiss of death. So if you have cultural inconsistency, what you're sending is, what the message you're sending is, you're an inconsistent person, you're an inconsistent office. You're not to be trusted. People who are inconsistent are less trustable. Bottom line. So to the extent that you're inconsistent, take a look in the mirror. And if you have reasons for that, and you're able to set up systems, we'll talk about that later as well, but if you're able to set up systems that are able to help you make sure that you personally aren't inconsistent, that's a really good thing. Let's turn to the next section, because this is actually piggybacks on it, and that is personal excellence. And this is just to say that your personal level of adherence and how you guys are showing up is the biggest thing, right? And you guys want to know the worst thing about being a district manager? Scott, Brian, and Jess just got really nervous. The worst thing about being a district manager is that what you do when no one is looking matters. That's the worst. What you do when no one is looking matters. That kind of sucks. Quite frankly. Right? And by the way, it doesn't get any easier. If you're going to be a leader in this life, what you do when no one's looking matters. Sorry. Right? You don't get to take a couple of plays off. You're on all the time. Right? And so if you're going to be a leader in this life, you're going to be an entrepreneur, you're going to run your own business, what you do when no one's looking matters. And let's just cover a couple of areas. I'll give you guys an opportunity to kind of reflect on this. But what about your energetic habits, your energetic standards for yourself? Your health habits. Just jot these down. Some different areas to audit and say, hey, what am I doing here? Maybe just go down the list here and rank yourself 1 to 10. Based on your own metrics, your own standards, personal energy habits, personal health habits. What about organization? You organized? You hot mess. Where you at? 1 to 10. Your relationship management. Your relationship with your significant other or your spouse affects your business. Right? It does. We all know. How you're showing up for your significant other matters. What about personal follow-through? By the way, that's not just significant other. That can be any relationship. Personal follow-through. You let things slip through the cracks? Or do you see them through? 1 to 10. Emotional management. It's okay to get emotional, right? But do you have it? Is it appropriately coming out in the right channels in the right way? Personal discipline. Integrity. There we go. Belief systems. Do you have a lot of limiting beliefs? I'll never earn $1 million. It's not possible. I always have to recruit and retrain my team every summer. As long as you believe that, I'll be sure. What about your personal growth? Read books, listen to podcasts, you have mentorships, conversations. Do you have something to actually push you to grow? Because if you're not growing, I don't know why you would expect your team to grow. Bless you. 1 to 10. Maybe there's some confronting things happening. Like I said, I'm hopeful that this will be a life-changing experience going through some of these topics. And so the big thing here is that congruency is king. Congruency is king. How congruent are you with what you claim to value? Right? And by the way, just as a side note, doesn't it feel good when we're showing up in alignment with our values? Like, there's nothing that feels worse than showing up and knowing that you're like a fraud. You're like, oh man, I'm a complete fraud. There's no way I should be giving this stock right now. Right? There's nothing worse than that. It sucks. Congruency is king. So just ask yourself, what are 3 areas you know you need to step up right now to avoid culture delusion? 3 areas of personal excellence. Take a look at your sheet there. What stands out to you? What's calling your name? You just know, yep, these 3 areas. I'm slacking on my health, my personal growth, my energy management. All right, my relationship, whatever. Make a decision. Make a decision to step up in these areas. So we're going to move next to next level leadership. Before we do, let's go back once. Any questions on personal excellence? I know we went quickly through it, but simple concept, easy to grasp, hard to master. That's the stuff. Anyone want to give a share here on personal excellence? Or two?
Good question. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Would you say the area to grow would be your lowest, or would it be if you're already strong in something, invest in making that one even stronger?
Yeah, I get the whole strengthening, like double down, triple down on your strength sort of conversation, and also in business, particularly in a role like yours where you're asked to be wear so many hats. You got to make sure you don't have a fatal flaw, right? So if you have a fatal flaw, right? Okay, yeah. If you have a fatal flaw, you got a fatal flaw. And so then you may just have a weakness that you cannot overcome. You have to work on that weakness, right? So, there are some things that maybe you don't value on that list as much, and that's okay, right? But if you have a fatal flaw that's stopping you from getting to your next level, you have to work on that, right? Like, I just can't get anyone over 30K in summer. It's like, well, in some ways that's not necessarily a fatal flaw, right? But maybe it is. Maybe it's something like you always lose people in the fall and spring. Like your development disappears, right? Maybe that's like a fatal flaw for a district manager. In this room, that's a fatal flaw. You got to figure out how to develop people. You got to figure out how to retain people. You have to figure out how to be trustable enough for people to want to keep coming back. That's a fatal flaw. Does that help?
Yeah.
Jeff, you want to say something?
No, and this is not for me, but let us know, let Scott know. You guys are really focused on this. We want to help too, and I think part of why Vegas is here is because we can't help with everything, and as much support as we can give to you, Vegas is supporting a lot of you. We'll support you, but give us that list and help us hold you accountable. This is good stuff. When we know, hey, I'm struggling with these three things. This is what I'm working on since I did coaching or spoke to Vegas. Like, that's really helpful for us to bring it back to that conversation often, because then we can call you out, or we can support or whatever that is.
Awesome. Cool. All right. We're making some progress. So I'm going to introduce a concept here called next level leadership. And so I'm going to introduce something called the meta game. Right? It's actually a little bit of a concept I got from watching some Jordan Peterson lectures. Is anyone a Jordan Peterson fan in here?
Nice.
Yeah? And I would highly recommend it. He's really, really good in terms of personal growth and development. Essentially, when we look at leadership, we want to be thinking about the meta game. And so I'll just give you an example. It's like you're the coach of a basketball team. Let's say it's NBA, and you're coaching the team. You guys got a game tonight. What's the objective for the game?
Win.
To win. Okay. Now, this is true. The objective of the game is to win. And also, when we're playing the meta game and we're thinking from a next level perspective, the goal isn't just to win, but it's actually to win the championship, right? It's like this. We want to win not just the game today. We want to win the set of all games, right? So there's actually a game that goes on in the NBA that's actually different than just the game that's being played, right? And a few years back, let's give you this example because it's just a perfect example. Popovich, right, his first coach, started resting his players, right? You guys are familiar. You guys familiar with this? So he would just start resting his players, especially his veterans, right? Senior level guys, they know the system, they know what's going on. He started resting, right? And he get a bunch of flack, right? Everyone's like pulling back. You can pay a bunch of money to go see, Kawhi at the time or whomever, and have these big stars on the court, and you'd be like, they're resting tonight. Genoa's out, and Kawhi's out, whatever. And because he didn't actually care about the game tonight. Right? What game did he care about? The championship, right? And so, you do have to make sure you win enough games in the short term, right? Because if you don't win enough games in the short term, what happens?
You don't get to the championship.
You don't even get a shot at the championship. You don't make playoffs, right? Or maybe you don't get a good enough seed, and you got difficult matchups and all these different things, right? So you gotta make sure that you don't sacrifice too much in the short term, right? But if you can, right, the game you're really trying to win is the metagame. And so what I'm trying to introduce to you guys to apply this sort of concept of like, hey, let's win the championship, not just the game, is I see a lot of managers, right, who they want to win every interaction with the rep. It's just like, they're just like leveraging all their social capital to like win right now. And, you know, we burn people out like that, right? You guys can probably, you know, probably have 10 to 50 people who like, you know, you like push to the brim and then they kind of like recoil on you, right? And they're like, I'm burnt out, I'm out of here, right? Or something like that. And so we always want to be thinking, right, if we're going to take the next leap in our business, how do we win the meta game? We want to be thinking at that next level. And that just means that we actually need to know when we can actually kind of like give someone a little bit of slack, right? And not leverage everything to try to get every inch of CPO, every ounce of CPO out of them this week, right? Now there is a time, bless you, there is a time where you're like, you know, you're up against it and you just gotta like make it happen, right? And you know, a push period is a great example of that. It's essentially when we're cashing in all of our chips, right? A push period is a great example of when you actually want to, you know, kind of make a withdrawal on some of the short term, in the short term, but you've already ideally put in, right, a lot of the long-term investments, right? If you're trying to make a short-term withdrawal with money that's not there, don't expect August to be that good, and don't expect your development candidates to last. So this is what we're trying to, you guys playing with me, right? The whole idea of a meta game is it's a conceptual game, right? And so the point here that I'm trying to make is you have to know when to go ahead and give a little grace and when to actually push, right? And so I call this winning the meta game. And so there's actually you can check out this Forbes article called Generous Tit for Tat. You know, it's also known as Modified Tit for Tat. But there's kind of a concept that is tit for tat, right? Is, you know, you do this to me, I do it back. That's tit for tat. So in business, though, that's not very good, right? Because as soon as somebody screws you over, right, or somebody like breaks their word, then you break your word back. That's really not how we should operate, right? So we actually want to be generous, especially as leaders, right? And always give them the benefit of the doubt. But we still want to practice that cultural sort of, you know, adherence and make sure that they get a little bit of guidance, right? But at the end of the day, we still give them some grace, and that's called generous tit for tat. So one of the best ways that you can actually practice this sort of winning of the metagame is to help people grow through scaffolding. So scaffolding, you can write that term down. Yes. Scaffolding. You know, it's actually an educational term. And so, you know, one of the things you guys want to be thinking about is, what are the different stages of someone in the business, right? You know, and let's just maybe list them off. Again, we can kind of throw these on there, but it's like, what are the different stages that someone might go through in the business? Say what? Okay. Can you be more specific?
Brand new first weekend.
Yep.
New hire.
Cool. So it's like new hire. And then what? Sales, you said first weekend? Yep. Yeah. I think you know, when they're new, the time frames are even shorter, right? It's like new hire, first weekend, then like fast start, probably, right? Then what? Okay. Yeah.
Pre-10K.
Yeah,
It's pre-10K? Okay.
First push period.
And there might be like a stratification here, right? Of like first promo, right? You know, 6K plus fast starter or something, right? So they start to stratify themselves into groups. Anyways, I don't want to get too complex with here. Then it's like pre-10K, then what?
TLA.
TLA? Yeah. Cool. There's probably some extra levels in there, right? So it's like pre-10K, you said something about first push. I kind of like that. What do you guys think? Yeah, they go through a mental switch, right? First real push, like first big push. Then it's probably something like, it's like, TLA. And inside TLA, there's scaffolding. So what are the different levels of TLA? What are the different skills they need to learn?
Recruiting, coaching.
What specifically about recruiting?
Front-end recruiting.
PRs, interviews.
Social media.
Social. And after that, maybe you can probably introduce them into the training side.
Coaching, yeah.
And then it's, maybe it's like second training, and then like training itself. So I'm not really here. You guys get the idea. So, as much as possible, we want to be thinking about what is the psychological state of each of these levels, right? And what's the skill set of each of these levels? And the more you guys can kind of constantly have an idea of like, what's the psychological state of this person? What do they need? This is the questions I write down. It's like, what's the psychological state of this person? What are the questions going on in their head? Right? Because if we can enter into the conversation that's already going on inside your rep's head, we can then actually have rapport and then actually see them to the next level. So we want to enter into the conversation that's already going on in their head. This is actually a very popular thing in branding, right? It's like you're creating a brand, you're writing copy. You want to enter into the conversation that's already going on inside someone's head. So, what's the psychological state? What questions do they have? What are the skills gaps that this person has? What are the skills this person needs to progress to the next level? So when we're insufficiently sophisticated about grouping people, what happens is we misunderstand them, or at least they feel misunderstood at the very least, right? So they start to think, this guy doesn't understand me. He's talking about TLA, and I'm not even a 10K, right? So you can actually make it really clear in your business. It's like some of you guys out there in the team meeting, right, are sitting there. Maybe you're out of 3K, maybe it started last week, and here's what you're probably thinking, right? And they're like, you guys understand me. This is awesome. And some of you guys are at 10K. Here's some of the skills you guys probably need to focus on. So you actually start to scaffold this, and people start to feel really understood, right? And I get it, you can't have every single message be tailored to every single person. Makes sense. What if you had a little playbook that just moves someone through this cycle that you designed and said, this is my development playbook. Probably take some time, right? I'm not saying that's an easy order, but there's almost certain aspects you can pretty much bet. And common problems that are going to be arising, and then you have a playbook for all the common problems that are going to be arising with these. And that really leads people to appreciate you and to see that you understand them. So this is just the concept of scaffolding. It's kind of just like if I'm a pianist, so I was a piano performance maker. So if I was going to teach you piano, right, I wouldn't just take the book out and like slap it down, you know, like throw Chopin at you, and be like, all right, it's a word. Okay. You're like, okay, well, this is where the C is, this is where the D is, this is where the E is, right? This is what the flats are and the sharps are, and this is the time signature, and this is this is what the clef is, and this is what some of you guys are like, yeah, whatever. Some of you guys are like, yeah, basic music references. Yeah, I get it. Andrew's like, I put the trombone. So you have to scaffold, right? Start with the basics. If you were going to teach someone basketball, you wouldn't mind what they have. You teach them how to dribble, you teach them how to shoot, teach them how to pass, teach them how to shoot layups. Right? That's called scaffolding. And then you have to be committed to win-win leadership. You know, I do think that there obviously is win-lose leadership where we're taking advantage of people. That's obviously not what I'm going for. It's not what the message of Better Than Management Company is all about. Right? We're definitely about helping people and serving others, right? And making a difference in the world. But at the same time, you know, in some ways, I feel like some people kind of take that the wrong way. They become like the martyr leader. Has anyone ever been there? Like, I'm a servant leader, so I'll just fall on the sword, right? I'll stay late till, midnight, and I'll just do this. I'll make the sample kits. You guys go have fun tonight with your friends, watch the movie. It's like, you're like making sample kits, whatever. So it's just like, you guys need to make sure that every exchange, right, that you're having is a win-win. Now, there's multiple ways for it to be a win-win. It can be a win-win financially, right? If you're spending time on something, it should be a high-leverage activity. It should be something that's, worthwhile. I don't know what you guys would consider yourselves after like an hourly rate or something like that, right? But at least $50 an hour. I would say 100 or 200, right? That's how you guys should be thinking. It's like, if this isn't worth at least $50 an hour, I'm not doing it. And that just means you need to find a different way to have, your office copies made, right? And that's going to leverage it. So it has to be a win-win. But there's also a win-win energetically, right? Sometimes people are just a drain on your system, and you're about to go into training, and someone's interrupting you, and maybe it's one of your top people. You just have to make sure that it's a win-win in that exchange. So at least a win-win or bust. So I want to pause there. I hope this is landing. We're trying to cover a lot of ground here. But I just want to give a couple of shares or questions. I'm not sure if I did the metagame analogy enough, or if that really landed yet, but let's see. Anybody?
I like that. I've actually been in conversations about that specific term.
Yeah.
And I like the scaffolding too. I would kind of, that's a simple thing that I haven't done that would add on top of it.
Thank you. Anybody else? Go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, I was just going to chime in about the awareness of where the reps are at, because I know a lot of times once you've been doing it long enough, once you have enough candidates, we just assume a lot based on where people are at, right? Or like now I have a lot of higher level candidates, so I think I make a lot of assumptions in my first years of where they're at mentally and doing things like that. I'm just because all my other candidates are higher level than that too, so just having a lot more awareness, I think, around just, people to see it for their.
Yeah. Awesome. One thing that I didn't highlight enough for the metagame is even just thinking about the game that you guys can, I would imagine that a lot of you guys want to have really, really successful districts or try to get promoted to DVM, right? And so it's if you want to do that, how would you need to show up for each other? You might look at it and say, well, Andrew, there's a finite number of divisions, and there's no way Scott can promote us all. And it's yeah, but if every single person was at a DVM caliber level in this room, I don't think Scott would be, mad about the embarrassment of riches he has, right? And, if you guys can help each other grow, that's another way, quite frankly, that you can win the meta game, right? Instead of withholding information, right? Based on some sort of competition or something. It's No, we're trying to win. We're playing the long game here, right? We're playing the long game when we're playing the meta game. And that means it's all about helping you be successful today. You have to survive, right? But at the end of the day, what we're really trying to do is to set up your business for success long term. You guys with me on that? If you have the next new great program, and you're like, I'm going to keep it under lock and key. Only I'm going to have it for Jan program. That's not really how we want to be operating. We want to be operating collaboratively, right? And helping out other offices, that's going to be recognized. So I just want to point that out. It's worth noting.
Yeah. I have a question on that. The metagame long term, basketball analogy, you said win the game today, long term win the championship.
Yeah.
I feel like it's like a never-ending growth in our company.
Sure.
Especially college kids that graduate college, move on. It's like almost like a window of time that we have them. What not that the analogy didn't land, but what could be another way of thinking about it? Because it's almost like there isn't a big championship game, I guess.
Those seasons are less than a year. We have these kids for longer than a year.
Yeah.
I would say getting it, putting them through the TLA track, what you guys are doing right now, right? Having them go branch or district, right? Having them go CSP, having them be an All-American, top performer. Here's another way to think about the metagame. What's your reputation in the community? What's your reputation at your colleges? Are you part of local, entrepreneur clubs or the Rotary Club or different things like that? Like, how is Vector being presented, outside of the Vector walls?
Mm.
Right? It's another way to win the meta game because now you're building these connections, you're building credibility over time, right? People are like, oh, I can't wait till my kid turns 18 and I can send him over to your office, Patrick. It's like, yeah, awesome. Yeah, send him my way. You've just won the meta game, right? You put in the groundwork in your community. How do you lead people? That's a great point though too. I do think that sometimes you see the writing on the wall, someone's going to leave. How are you? Are you sending them up with grace? You're kind of turning the cold shoulder, right? So it's like we have to, especially in today's age, where it's the information age and anybody can share everything instantly. Reputation matters, right? So you guys need to guard your reputation. Send them out with grace. Make sure that they love you and they can't wait to send you 3 of their friends. It's a great way to do that. Is this helpful?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Any other questions? All right. Cool. So, you mentioned scaffolding. Darren, this is a big part of what I want to try to do. By the way, Scott, what's my time? Wait for me after the part.
I think you've got a solid hour.
Okay. So what I want to do here is talk, do a deep dive on systems. I think this is where we can really get a little under the hood. Because I don't know for sure, but maybe just rate yourself right now, 1 to 10 on systems creation and deployment. Right? How you feel about that for each of you guys, right? Just rate yourselves 1 through 10. You feel good at it, you feel like you're not good. Right? Who here feels like they are, really solid at systems creation and deployment? A couple people. Okay. So that's what, 8 or higher? What'd you give yourselves? 8. 8?
Yeah, 7.5.
7.5? Yeah, great. So who here feels like they're okay, 4 to 7? Amir, Luke, Patrick, David, Darius. He's like, no, not even close. All right, and then who feels like they're below that, below 4? All right, at least you guys are honest. I appreciate that. Orlando, Zach. So this is a huge area of opportunity, right? Because the system is really something by which you can multiply, right? A system is a multiplication tool, not an addition tool, right? You add an ORA or something, and she makes a few hundred extra calls a week or something. That's an addition, right? But a system is a multiplier. And we want to be able, obviously multiplication grows faster than addition. So we really want to be implementing as many multiplication tools into our business as possible. So here's a simple definition, right? Sometimes people are like, what is a system? Well, a system is a series of processes, policies, and/or technologies that serve the business's initiatives. Right? So it's just a simplified version. A series of processes, policies, and technologies. When you think about a system, those are the three things I want you to think about. What are the processes? What are the policies? What are the technologies that would need to be created to make this work? I mentioned this earlier, the better the system is designed, the less skills required by those executing. The better systems designed, the less skill required by those executing. And that's why my guess is that those in the room who think that they're pretty good to good at creating systems probably have the best development, right? Because the development feels like they're onboarded into some sort of sequence, right? In a lot of major companies, the training period isn't 3 days, but 3 months, right? For a Fortune 500 company or something like that. So obviously, we're not going to be doing that at Breakout. That wouldn't make any sense. But we do want to be at least borrowing, the whole idea of making people feel really comfortable and at ease as we're putting them through a training process. And the more we can give them the tools and documentation and make them feel like, oh my gosh, this is so easy, the better. Okay, so a process. What is a process? A process is a series of if-then statements. So when you think about a computer, how it operates, all it is a series of if-then statements, right? If I click here, then present this. If I hit this button, shut down. Right? All it is if-then, if-then. Mm-hmm. Right? And so when you're designing a process for your business, let's say PDI, right? It's like, okay, all you need is the 10 most common scenarios, and then an if-then flowchart for the 10 most common scenarios. Right? If the rep says this, then say that. If they say this, say that. If the rep then says this, ask them if they got any referrals. If they say no, ask them if they haven't memorized. If they say no, if they say yes, have them recite it. If no, tell them, ask them when they're going to have it memorized them. Write that in the Google Doc, in the PDI chart, so that everybody knows. The next person who talks to them can follow up with that. So that level of detail orientation, right? I find rarely makes it into vector offices, right? And that's okay. You guys are doing just fine, right? Everyone here is doing well. It's if you want to take that next leap, I'm not saying you have to do it for PDI, but it's just start making a list of where you want to attack systems and put these processes in place, and then prioritize the most important ones. Right? Maybe it's training, maybe it's recruiting, I don't know. Right? Whatever it is, make that list and then put it through.
You said it again.
Which part?
The step 1, step 2. You're you want to do this, step 1, 25 years, step 2. I just want to get down that.
Are you talking about specifically the PDI?
Literally what you just said.
Okay, yeah, what I just said is make a list of all the areas you want to put systems in place, right? It's the non-summer. It's time to put systems in place. That's what your non-summer is, right? It's you're not putting new systems in May, right? So make a list of all the systems you want to create, or for, not even the specific systems, what you want to work on, what you want to organize, and then just prioritize them. Prioritize them and start knocking them off the list.
What order would you knock them off first?
Whatever is most important to you, right? Or whatever's going to yield the best ROI on the system, or wherever you're experiencing the most pain because of a lack of organization. What's the weakest points in your business? Identify those. Or what if optimized could yield the largest return? So it could be something like PR, recruiting, interview. It could be something like development, or PDI, field training, could be anything. So then let's talk about policies. What are the policies of your office? If you're like me, when I was district manager, we didn't have any policies. There were basically no policies, no rules. There were some guidelines. They were usually followed, but there weren't any policies. It's like we're operating a business here. Our policy on this is that. Simple. So it's a series of rules that must be followed. Oh, by the way, are there exceptions to rules? Yeah, of course. But what happens more frequently, the rule or the exception? What happens more frequently? The rule, right? Did you just mishear me? Okay. Checking the Alabama LSU game score. So no, just kidding. So it's like, so what I'm trying to get here is, have rules in place that are going to cover 80% to 90% of the time, right? So the person's like, what do I do if the person wants to get the homemaker set, but they want to substitute the da-da-da? I don't know. Something simple. You have the rule, right? So you can actually train someone on that, and then you don't have to take the PDI. You with me on this?
Yeah.
Maybe it's not a great example. Maybe it's like, I can't make the team meeting tonight. Okay. So we have a policy in place where you can't make the team meeting here. That's not a problem. That being said, we do have a policy where you need to speak with somebody who is there to get the information. I have a list here of a bunch of people who are going to be there. Just start rattling off names. Okay, who do you want to call to get the information from? Okay. And how are you? And then you're gonna send an email, right, after that conversation to me, letting me know what you learned from that conversation, right? As part of our policy. Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. This is the level you guys want to get to, right, when you're thinking about policies. It's very similar to the concept of processes, but we have policies in place that are actually designed for adherence, right? Now, one of the biggest things about creating policies is you have to enforce them. We'll talk about that next. Technologies is a set of tools that make execution easier, right? We all know that, but what are the sets of tools that make execution easier? So you want to be thinking about technology and how you guys can be innovative using this, particularly these days, particularly with your clientele, right? By your clientele, I mean college students, right? They're very technologically advanced. Right? When I was in Vector, we called our manager, every time after 7 a.m. or something like that. And I'm guessing that a lot of PDI is done through technological ways. And these sorts of things, after the phone conversation isn't great from time to time as well. But just think about what are the technologies that are going to be helpful. And I think particularly, content marketing is a really big trend. You guys know what content marketing is? You do. Maybe you just haven't heard the term. But content marketing is essentially just creating a bunch of free content, right? And using that as marketing. I mean, it's basically the whole idea of social media. So you guys might think about what's a way to deliver content, right, proactively to people. Maybe every morning you have your morning minute, and it's just like you and your phone. You just record it, you zip it out to the team, right? It just kind of keeps them in the culture, keeps them on understanding what's going on. And what are the updates? What are the promotions? Get a little jolt of energy from you instead of being distracted by somebody else. So thinking about ways to be proactive and use technology to deliver those jolts. So there's basically 5 steps to create a system. So we're going to go over each of these in detail, and we might even do a little bit of workshopping, right? Because I think that this could be really helpful. Like just taking an idea that you want to create a system for, and see if we can collectively design it. So design, right, is the first step. We have to kind of conceptualize it. We're playing in the creative space when we design, right? Design is a creative act, right? Good luck trying to design a new system with 30 minutes in between training and an interview or something. You need some good solid space in your calendar, right, to design it. And you You got to make sure you have the energy to do that, but it's really fun, frankly. Now, some of you guys might be more creative than others, so if you're not as creative, that's okay. It might just take you a little bit longer, or you can partner with someone who is creative in the room and see if you guys can jointly, kind of create a system together. Say, hey, let's workshop this together. Next one is documentation. Okay? You just designed the perfect system. Congratulations. Right? Doesn't mean much, right? Because you have to actually be able to train someone on that system, right? Who's ever had the perfect system in your mind and then you train the team in 4 minutes, and then you're like, I'm sure they got it, And you come back and it's a mess, and they're like, they weren't following anything, right? You're like, I told you, this is what you're supposed to do. Yeah, you trained me in 4 minutes, bro. Not going to work. You didn't provide any materials, right? So documentation. Then we have the training, right? And that's a process. That's a scaffolding process in and of itself. Training someone on a new system, right? Starting from the ground up. Enforcement, right? There's no use in having a system if it's not going to be enforced. I've also put plenty of systems in place, only to come back a few weeks later and find that nobody's doing them anymore, right? Because there wasn't a system for tracking whether or not it was getting done. Or worse yet, you get a system going and it's working for 3 months or 6 months, and then all of a sudden you look under the hood 6 months later and no one's been doing it for the last 2 months. Ever have that happen? Guys, we spent so long putting this thing together. You just let it crumble, right? Because you weren't watching. So you have to you have to think about, what's my system to enforce the systems? What's my system to enforce the system? That's a good one. Iteration. So how do you build upon whatever the next step is? You guys with me? So let's talk about design. So when we're designing a system, we always want to start with the end in mind. We want to ask, what's the desired outcome for this? So we might just say team meetings, right? What's the desired outcome for a team meeting? Just shout out some ideas. What are some potential, there's probably a lot of them, right? So what are some of the desired outcomes of a team meeting?
Next event.
Say that again?
Get them in the next event.
Yep, next event. Yep, what else?
Recognition.
Drive demos, what else?
Instructional.
Yep, teach. What are we teaching them at?
Dropping bombs.
Dropping bombs. Teach. Right, love that. So there's Cutco teaching, and then maybe there's personal growth, we'll call it, right?
Yeah, inspire.
Inspire them, right? So yeah. What else?
Recognition.
Recognition, huge one.
Calendar clarity.
Calendar, yeah, so scheduling. Yep.
Where we are, where we're going. Vision.
Yeah, what I'm building.
Assignments.
Assignments, nice. Yeah, opportunity to enforce the culture, right? Or reinforce, I should say. Maybe have some fun. What else?
Call to action.
Call to action.
Recognition. Oh, we got that.
Have them actually do something, right? Cool. So we just came up with a bunch of them, right? So this is what you want to accomplish in a team meeting. Well, then we want to prioritize our outcomes. If you were to pick the top 3 from this list, I know it might be tough to read for some of you that don't have the best handwriting and we're kind of scribbling away. But what do you guys think here? Top 3.
Recognition, vision, and next event would be mine.
Recognition. Say what? Next event and what
Next
else?
event and vision.
Vision. Okay, good. What do you guys think? Let's get some more ideas.
Specifically, which one would be the first one?
Yeah, top 3 for you guys.
Make them feel good.
If I gave you each 3 tally marks and you came up and you ranked your top 3, what do you think would come up with?
Vision, demos, and I'd probably say recognition.
Cool.
Demos, vision, and what was the first one?
Next event, promotion.
So citizen inclusion, drive demos, and actually.
Cool. So you guys can go through, you can prioritize these, right? It's very similar to what I came up with when I ran this for myself. I think I came up with reinforced culture as number 1, and then drive demo is number 2. So just to give you an idea. I want them to be culturally strong. So you guys get the idea then, right? You start to rank them. And then what you can do is you can ask yourself, right, from a pre-event and during an event and post-event, how might we make that happen? Right? What might be the ideal scenario, right? How could we craft the ideal scenario to drive recognition, reinforce the culture, and drive demos, let's say. Right? Well, how would we want them to show up? So if those were your 3 goals, let's just pick those 3 just for the sake of example. So we're going to say reinforce culture, drive demos. What do you guys think? Should be number 3. Vision? Vision. Okay. Vision. That's great. Because it's just like, you're making them money, right? You're reinforcing the culture, you're getting them to think big picture, and that's going to have them just feel inspired naturally. Right? So let's just say those are the top 3. Okay. How would you want them to show up, ideally, if these were your 3 goals?
Prepared.
Prepared. And how specifically would they need to be prepared?
Phone numbers.
Phone numbers. Right.
Charger, phone.
Phone numbers,
Calendar.
charger, phone. What else?
Calendar.
Calendar.
Call tracker, instructions.
Nice. Call tracker. Projections. Anything else?
Great attitude.
Great attitude. Great. Huge. Okay. So then, how do you solve for that? It's like an equation, right? It's like, this is what we want the result to be. So what sort of inputs would we need to get this output? PDI. Okay. So what might you say on that PDI call?
How many phone numbers?
How many phone numbers you have? Great.
What's the goal for the week?
What's your goal for the week? You know, I would also, suggest that you just straight up tell people, right, what they need to be bringing. It's like, imagine that. It's like, by the way, tonight, one of our main objectives is to get a bunch of demos lined up. Right? We're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to make the vision for you. And we're gonna have a great time as a culture. One of our big objectives is to drive results for you. We want you making money. We want you to love the job. And I know you got a big goal this week. So let me just ask you, how many phone numbers do you have? Okay, great. Make sure you bring all the phone numbers. Okay, make sure also you bring your charger. Are you writing this down? Okay, make sure you bring your phone. You guys with me? You just have this list of whoever's running PDI that they need to say this script to whomever is on the other line. We have so many scripts for the rep. What about our assistants? What about for yourself? Right? Script it out. Okay, by the way, make sure you bring your calendar and your call sheets and your objections. If you forget those, we'll have extra sheets there. And that's another thing. You have printouts of all these different things that are readily available. So if someone's like, I forgot, you're like, oh, no worries. They're right over here. Your office is super neat and organized, and you're like, oh gosh, I was trying to get off the hook, but I guess I got to make the calls. Get it? By the way, how are you feeling right now?
Pretty good.
Feeling great? Okay. You guys are feeling good. It's like, I'm feeling pretty good. Pretty good. Okay, fair enough. Like, just so you know, tonight's gonna be awesome. If you need to have a conversation before you come in, just let me know. If you want to have a great pep talk before you jump on the phone. We want to make sure you have a great attitude, right? Maybe you have some sort of intake form when they get there, right? So during, it's like they arrive. What's their experience like when they arrive on Wednesday night? You guys still do Wednesday nights? Yeah, all right. I love it. So it's like, they walk in Wednesday night. What's their experience like? They should be greeted, right? Hey, welcome. Maybe they have like a sign-in form, right? Okay, go ahead and sign in. Right? Maybe it's like a Google form. It's like, hey, here's an iPad. Just go ahead and click through this Google form. We have your updates, have your numbers. By the way, there's a question in there. It's like, how you feeling right now? Right? Showing up to the team meeting about your prospects to hit your goal, 1 through 10. Right? So you get data, right? You get actual data on how people are showing up. Right? You can track over time. You can integrate that with some sort of like, PDI system if you wanted to, technology. Here's a tip that I didn't write down, but it's really good. I just recalled. You want to create red flag mechanisms. A red flag mechanism in a system is very necessary. But what a red flag mechanism is like when somebody is a red flag, right? So let's say they're on that intake form. It's like, how do you feel about the job right now? Is one of the questions. They look like, what? And they're at the team meeting, right? So I would say, like, if they put 0 to 2, say, like, maybe it's 0 to 4, or something like that, they get red flags, right? And you have a process to handle the red flags. So it's like an assistant, anybody who's like 0 to 4, like, immediately has to have a conversation, right, before they jump on the phone or something, right? And maybe you get a list of all the red flags before you start the team meeting so you're aware where people are at in the room. You can see how systematizing, right, and putting processes and procedures and technologies in place is going to help your business. Now, it's going to take some work. You guys are like, man, this is a lot of work, right? But hopefully I've got your minds moving in the right direction. You got 6 months. Now's the time, right? And like I was telling Darren, start with the biggest ones. Start with the most important ones. Don't need to have a perfect system for everything just yet. By the way, just as important as red flags are green flag mechanisms. Green flag mechanisms are important too. Who's feeling great? You want to know that. Who's loving it? Who's high on life? Who just sold an ultimate? Right? You need ways for good news to trickle up to the top as well. So red flag and green flag mechanisms. Again, you can create policies around this. If someone shows up to a team meeting and they're a red flag 2 weeks in a row, then this. Right? 3 weeks in a row, they're removed from the team or something. I think that should happen, but maybe they're a drain on the culture. Right? I sense that this is, and then post-event. Let's cover this first before I open up for questions. Post-event. What's your plan for reinforcing what was taught, right? Maybe the next morning, they get a shout-out video from you on WhatsApp. Hey guys, had a great time at the team meeting. Just as a reminder, here's some of the major initiatives. Here's when the next event is. Post-event. How are you following up? If you guys signed up for a conference or something like that, you'd expect to get pre-event materials. Right? If you were going to like a Tony Robbins event or something, you expect to have communication with the staff, the team, you email, these sorts of things, maybe a phone call, right? And at the event, you'd expect an excellent experience, and post-event, you'd probably expect something too. At least that'd be the ideal customer experience. Your customers are your reps, right? In a lot of ways. And so we want to think, what's the ideal customer experience for them? Start thinking like a customer satisfaction team, right? If I were to go around and ask them for CSAT data, customer satisfaction, what would they get? How many would give you 5 gold stars about their Vector Cutco experience? Or an NPS score, right? A promoter score. What would they say? How likely are you to refer Vector to a friend? 1 through 10. How many would be promoters, or how many would be detractors? Cool. That's a lot of information. How's it landing?
This is just design.
We're just in design. And by the way, when you're designing, you should go a little crazy. You should think about the ideal. Now, when you create the ideal, let me just say this. Is that Joseph? Joseph? I guess right. So, when you're designing, I design for the ideal, right? But when you're implementing, you can say right. When you're implementing, there's a concept in the startup world called a minimal viable product, MVP. You may have heard of that. So when you're implementing, you might want to start with the minimally viable system. So what I just described is like a very, like, the ideal system, right? But what's the minimally viable one? And the minimally viable system is the least amount of structure. This is a good thing for you right now. So like minimal viable system, the least amount of structure required to produce a reasonable amount of change. Say like somewhat of a standard deviation change in the result, right? So what's the minimal amount of structure I could create in this system that would produce a standard deviation change in the result? And that's how you should honestly be implementing, right? Because I just designed a system that assumed that each of you guys had like 10 assistants, and so you get the idea. So you have this, and that's a scaffolding question too, right? You work towards it. You work towards the ideal, and you just take on one more next thing. But when you design, go for the ideal. So we'll pause here. What's going on for you guys? Either questions, comments, concerns, musings, ramblings. David.
So, how do you know? In my mind, okay, for example, I'm creating an assistant manual training that has basically everything that the AM would need. It's already at 60 pages. Like, how do you just gave me like maybe 10 more pages of things to add. How do you know when it's done?
It's so there's a concept, known as a living doc, right? So it's probably never done. It's a living doc. And what a living doc is something that probably lives on the cloud, right? So like Google Docs or Google Sheets, and it's constantly being iterated on by you. You might not want everyone to have edit access, right? So they should probably have view access and you have edit access. But it's a living doc. It never goes outside, right? And every time you enter something new, they have to be retrained. Now, you said, okay, there's a 60-page document. It's like, fair enough. Like, we may want to say, like, what's the minimally viable? You may want to implement some of the minimally viable sort of ideas and concepts, right? To pare that down and roll it out over time or something. Maybe you create, like, the master doc, and then you give them, like, a few sheets at a time, right? Where you create the master, but you just, the training process, you can think about this as like an educator, right? And this is what we're talking about, playing the long game and thinking about scaffolding and meta processes and all these things. It's like, think about like an educator. How, if I trained them once a week, what would this module be on? What would this module be on? What would this week's lesson be? Design a lesson plan and then make sure that all the 60 pages are designed or are trained upon, right? And then they have like the prerequisite learning. Like, what's the base level learning that they need to learn? Like, what's AM 101? Right? And here's a way to think about it. What's AM 101 class? And then what would I teach in lecture 1 of AM 101, the course? What would I teach in lecture 2? What would I teach in lecture 3? What would I teach in lecture 4? And yes, there's a test. Right? Otherwise, how am I going to know that you know the material? If you don't pass the test, right, then there's repercussions to that. Maybe I'll give you a second chance. If you don't pass the second time, you're out of the training. Something like that. So this is next level thinking. A lot of what I'm trying to do is to get you to take some of the concepts, right? I'm not saying you're going to have this perfect, but you can take these concepts and apply them over time and play the long game, and it is going to take time. You're going to win. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Cool. What else?
One thing to echo on that point, Drew Frank really came up with the concept of elegance and simplicity in our business, of like those one-page documents more so than the whole giant Bible too. So that's like almost saying the same thing, just completely opposite as well, where it's like, how can you then take this giant document and oversimplify it so that way a new trainee or a new staff member is like, awesome, I can do that because there's so much simplicity and I can take confidence in that too. Because if I'm a new AM, it's like, oh wow, 60 pages. It's fuck. Like, versus there's just 6 one-page documents and it's like, hey, this is our program. All you need to do is master these things. Like, just a thought.
I love it. And even take into consideration how it's visually presented. Thinking about pictures and workflows, right? Design. Anytime you can provide like a model, like a visual model of things. So, circles, squares, graphs, concentric circles. You can think about triangles and different, like putting them into shapes, right? And or workflows that are like, think about like, online you look at infographics, right? Who's ever like checked out like a really cool infographic? You're like, oh, this is like kind of cool, right? So almost think about it that way. Could you present it in a multimedia fashion, right? Using PowerPoint or Keynote or something. It's easier for them to consume visually.
And I want that 60-page document, please. in English, please.
Sorry.
Google Translate, please.
What else, Andrew?
Yeah, I was just going to add, I think you can have, like for David in your situation, having like you said, have both, right? You have your MVP, like kind of like the bare bones, hey, like this is just the basics of the staff. And then you have your Bible of like, this has everything that you could possibly, like, it's built in here to be systematic, scaled out, and having like both of them, right? So it's like, one that's for scaling that people want quick, and one that's like more detail oriented, so when they need to, they can go into it and find what they need.
Correct. And David, just to remind you, and I'm sure there's a lot of people have this question, but it's like, think about where they're at on their TLA journey, right? And handing them a 60-page document when they just sold their 10,000 night is like probably not the right move. Maybe that's like you only like let people in on that when they're like a repeat candidate or something. You're like, hey, it's time for the gift. And that's honestly, especially that's what I did. I think a lot of when I went to Silver Cup, it was a repeat. Right, it was my second summer. So a lot of times that's the case, and so kind of give them bare bones, and then up the ante the next year. Other questions on design? Otherwise, we can move on. Cool. It's like, what I love is like 4 hours on a Saturday. Maybe you don't love that, but maybe it's 4 hours on a Sunday at a Starbucks and like blank sheets of paper. Or taking these white sheets of paper, just going to Office Depot, buying the sticky ones, throwing a few up in your room, turning on some really cool music, right? And just like thinking about the question with wide open space. Clear your whiteboard and just like start scribbling everywhere. It's a brainstorm session, right? Where you can just kind of put these things together and then all of a sudden click, click, click. Then it starts to become real, it starts to become material. And that brings us to the next section, right? Which is documentation and training. So we want to scaffold the training process. We've talked a lot about that at this point. Bit by bit by bit, right? What's dribbling? What's passing? What's shooting layups, right? We're not going to teach them the Euro step on day one. Right? So it's like provide reference docs, right? They should have documentation that they can reference all the time. So make sure that there's documents that they're, repeatedly coming back to. In the training process, it's really simple, right? They should watch you for a while, right? And then just debrief. And you rinse and repeat at that level until you feel comfortable to watch them. One of the things that Mike Muriel said to me, I remember he left, I think it was an interview. And, at this point he was already DDM. I know now he's a region manager, but he was a very decorated DBM. He had, multiple silver cups and all those different things. And so he gets started running an interview. It was like a larger interview or whatever. I came out, I was his pilot at the time, and I said, "How was the interview?" I happened to show up like in the middle of it or something and didn't want to interrupt. And he goes, I ran a perfect interview and I'm so mad. So, that doesn't make any sense, Mike. When you run a perfect interview, you're supposed to be happy. And he said, "No, I'm mad that no one was watching you." And like, when you get to a certain level, that's how you guys should be thinking. It's like, who's watching me right now? Because you're killing two birds with one stone when someone's watching you do something, right? If you're running a lot of interviews by yourself right now, right? I mean, even in the fall, I think that's kind of a problem. I think you got to figure that out. If you're not using that training time as you're running training to train others, it's kind of a problem. You got to figure that out, right? So someone should be watching you almost all the time, and then you got to debrief with them, right? Maybe you don't have as much time every single time to debrief in depth, but they should be taking notes and debrief with you. Don't get mad when they don't understand, like some sort of like nuanced thing that you did when you're debriefing. Like they just started. Give them some grace, okay? But you rinse and repeat that until they're ready to run it. But when they first run it, you watch. Okay, so they watch it first. Now you watch, and then you debrief. Constantly moving them, through the progression of mastery. Essentially, what this is. This is mastery. Who wrote The Art of Learning? Does anyone know that? Matthew Kelly? I'll have to look it up and send it to you all. But The Art of Learning, he talks about how, in martial arts, you want to practice things really slow. Right? And you want to practice the nuance. And Steph Curry has like 19 different steps to his three-pointer. You're like, you watch it, you're like 1 second, it's gone, right? It's almost always in. It's like, I was 19 steps there. It's like, that's mastery. He's like, foot placement, elbow, everything, right? Head placement. Aim. So the masters they're masters at the nuance. So we want to try to instill that, right? By going, like seeing if we can get them to that level of mastery. That takes time, right? We got to know who to do that with and who to give them the one-page doc and get them started, right? There's two different types of it. How do you guys feel about that? So only after this do they move to their being set free to do things on their own, right? I do think that some sort of certification process should be in place. How do you know if someone's certified, right? There should be a certification. How do I know if this person's certified to run interviews? Well, did they pass your office's certification process? And if so, then they're certified. It's like, you don't want your plumber not to be certified. So it's like, we don't want our interviewers in our own office not to be certified. Again, they're going to take, generally speaking, people will be about as lazy as you allow them to be, right? I learned that. Very much so. I was managing 1,500 employees, not salespeople, in India, and their whole motivation was to do as little work as possible. That was pretty much it. I had a handful of people who wanted to grow in the company, were interested in personal growth. Most of them, all they wanted to do was as little work as possible. Right? And so, if you give them an inch, they'll always take them out. So then there's, by the way, that doesn't apply for high level people. Right? So always know that. Let's move on to the next section. Autonomy is gained over time and trust as time and trust is increased. Right? So autonomy is something that people love, and it is a something that increases job satisfaction. Right? So having a say in the bottom line or the end results, right, is one piece of job satisfaction, and the other is having autonomy. Right? So if we can create our people to be autonomous, then great. But autonomy is earned, right? Like, having a culture of autonomy is a great goal, right? But it has to always be earned. And if there's a violation of trust, then they get reined back in. Right? So the degree of micromanaging has to be increased as trust decreases. As trust increases, autonomy decreases. Right? And tell your people that. Hey, I don't want to micromanage you. I want you to be autonomous. Here's what I would need to see from you to allow you to be autonomous and to just trust that you got this. You got that training class on lock. I was talking to Andrew in the Starbucks line. It's like, yeah, man, I'm having my best fall ever. Like, I'm hardly there. It's like, you got some really great people, right? You probably train them really well to help them be autonomous. You trust them a lot. So keep it up. It's like a bigger role. It's like the opposite of, what some people should have, right? And you have to be dedicated. You have to be committed to that. Okay. Let's keep going. 30 minutes, so we're pretty well here. Enforcement. So we were talking earlier, right, about culture. Same thing with systems. Inconsistency is the kiss of death. People need to be held accountable. That's not really a bad thing. How much? 20. Okay, thank you. So people need to be held accountable. There's no use in having a system if people aren't going to follow it. A PIP, a PIP plan, is a performance improvement plan. Right? So I'll talk, basically what a PIP is if somebody is underperforming consistently. How do you handle when somebody is underperforming consistently? You can put them on a performance improvement plan. Just outlines, say a timeline and a result that's measurable that they would need to get, right, in that timeline to justify them staying on the team or them staying in this role or them still being certified on this particular process, right? So if somebody is running interviews, they're just like consistently not getting jobs, it's like you can put them on a performance improvement plan, light a little fire under them, so that will challenge them to the next level. Right? It's good, you gotta use it situationally. Enforcement, though, is really just about, do you have a system for tracking what's happening? Do you have a system for tracking whether or not there's adherence? Right? So often, we kind of have the best intentions on the front end, and then who's ever talk to a rep and you're like, okay, cool, sounds great. You're trying to hold them accountable, and you're like, okay, call me on Saturday if this, right? If you don't have 10 demos booked up, call me on Saturday, right? And we made this request, and they said yes, right? But we didn't really have a way to log that agreement, right? And this happens all the time in business, right? Where we make some sort of agreement, where it's like, you're going to do this, right, David? Yes. It's like, cool, awesome. And then we as managers do what? We just forget about it, right? And then we see David next Wednesday in the team meeting, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you got some text me. I told him I was going to hold him accountable. He probably didn't have a good week. And now he knows that I didn't follow through on my word, so now he's going to take advantage of that. It's like, man. Right? So you need to have a system for enforcement. One of the best tools in technologies, I'll tell you, on your iPhone, you have an Android, I don't know, you got to figure it out here at home. I'm sure they have a similar tool. But it's just the reminders app, frankly. And anytime I have a reminder, like I said, I'm going to look up so I'll just give you, I said I was going to send you guys the concept about the art of learning. So I'll make a new one, send Eastern Region art of learning material.
By Josh Waitskin.
Josh Waitskin, there you go. Cool. So now that goes into my app, right? So I won't forget. Right? right? Real-time example. And it's on my to-do list. And I just have this up on my computer all the time. I have it on my phone all the time. You can also set deadlines. You can set priority levels, right? All sorts of stuff. You can create different types of lists. So I have my business list, I have my family list, we have a shopping list to share with my wife. If I think of something I want, I add it there. She goes to the store, it's there. It's like efficiency.
Good system.
I got a book list that I want to catch up on, research to read, all sorts of stuff. Olean trip initiatives. So I got this is like how you guys want to be thinking, right? And so if I just have a list here, it's like if I tell a client I'm going to follow up with them by a certain day, I better make sure I write that down, right? Because otherwise it's being forgotten about. You know, a lot of there's things called tasks and these sorts of things, right? But this reminders app is great just to kind of keep things in your awareness. So you have to have a system to hold people accountable. And that shows when you mean business, right? And it's just like, we just had cultural concentration in that moment. When I follow up with the client, when I said I would, cultural concentration, right? They respect me more, right? And then they're going to honor their word more. Because there's more trust in the relationship, just as human beings do. So the last part, here is iteration. You know, one thing I do want to note is don't change a system without detailed consideration. You know, that I definitely want to especially say that for systems that come from, say, the region or your division or different things like that. Sometimes maybe you're like, man, I think I can do that system better. It's like, yeah, but until you actually sit down and design it, just keep doing it, right? Because it serves a purpose. You actually do a lot more harm than good when you just start changing a bunch of stuff, right? Things are complex. Business is more complex than we like it to be. I was like, okay, go fix this military helicopter. It's like going in and just like moving a bunch of stuff around. It's not a good idea, right? You take a very detailed consideration of what you want to change. Look for systems that are outdated, ineffective, or painful. Like you were asking, Darius, like, how do I prioritize it? There's like 20 different things I want to get done between now and the summer, so these are big tasks. It's like, well, look for the ones that are outdated, ineffective, or most painful. That'll help you prioritize. If you already have a pretty good PR system, roll with it. If you don't, fix it. Maybe you need to work on VDI. It's different for every person in the room. And then basically you head back to the top of the funnel to design, right? And you can still use elements of the old system, right? Sometimes there's like tweaks need to be made, and sometimes they need to be done wholesale. So this is where kind of that discernment and playing the metagame. And you're like, man, if I change, here's another problem people make. They change like 4 systems at once. It's like, you have like some coffee infused weekend, like, you come back, you didn't sleep at all, and then you come to your AMs on Monday, you're like, guys, I got a whole new, we're gonna change the game. They're like, what's happening? So you gotta make sure that you kind of take bite-sized chunks, right? And take a measured approach, right? This is a pretty conservative way to run a business, but I would argue that conservatism is usually a pretty good tool in business, right? Yes, there's the people who place all their bets and things like that, but a lot of times being overly risky in business doesn't pan out, right? And you probably felt like that sometimes, man, I'm really like, my chips are in the middle here, I gotta have this pay off, right? And we want to move to an approach where it's like, you can kind of take a little bit of a hit 1 week or whatever, right? Obviously, doing that financially is important too. But whatever you guys can do to be able to not get sloppy and take a conservative approach is usually good. We want to mitigate risk in business, right? It's like Warren Buffett's number one thing is like protect your downside. And so what you want to be thinking about is, if I put this system in place, this is a really important point. Always consider what some of the unintended consequences of a system might be. So there's the law of unintended consequences, right? So people put in the war on poverty. Let's use like an example. It's like we're gonna create a welfare system, right? But then one of the unintended consequences was people would not get married, right? As a result of that, so that they could get the extra welfare check, right? And then they stayed there, right? So the war on poverty didn't work because of that, right? So there's always unintended consequences. It's like, I'm meaning well. It's not actually working in principle. So watch out for unintended consequences. All right, don't get sloppy. That's another thing. Cool. Last thing here, and then we're pretty much going to just kind of do a little bit of Q&A and start heading back to the main room here. I hope this has been helpful for you all. I'm having fun, so that's good. So basically, KPIs, key performance indicators. You guys use that term around here? Or use a different one? KRA, sure. So key results areas. Basically, what gets measured gets managed. And I just put here, you need to become obsessed with metrics, right? We just talked about risk mitigation. We want to have our business run on facts, not feelings. Run your business on facts, not feelings. Right? It's always funny when I'm like, social coaching call, I'm like, how's it going? Not to say that feelings aren't legitimate sometimes, right? But it's like, yeah, I feel like the office is going pretty well. Okay. Is it going well? It feels like it. There's some momentum. Okay, like what leads you to believe there's momentum? Well, it just feels like things are picking up. It's like, is it picking up or not? Right? Metrics. That's how we want to be thinking. Become obsessed with your metrics. So you always want to know your numbers. It's like, what are your targets and where are you at? And do you have systems to track? When I moved to India, basically we had a 10% drop in call rate. We get paid off by the minute for every call that we took. We were in the outsourcing business. Yes, I ran an outsourcing business in India. That's about the most stereotypical thing you could imagine. White guy coming in to take charge of the staff. That's literally what it was. It was the white guy in charge. I got a lot of flack for that. But anyways, we got paid by the minute. We were dropping 10% of the cost, right? The average time on the call was maybe 8 minutes. You get 50 cents a minute or something. It's like, that's a lot of money, right? Dropping 10% of your revenues. So all I did to drive that from 10% to 1%, which is basically like, just randomness, was every 15 minutes I ran the report of how many calls dropped in a 15-minute window. Because that was how often our software was. It was like, every 15 minutes, if we dropped one call, I was angry. Right? I was like, not really angry. I was just like, why did we drop a call? Like, what's going on? I asked questions. People were just like, because it was normal then. They were just like, call drop, who cares? That's crazy. So every 15 minutes we ran the report, and I kept an Excel spreadsheet of every 15 minutes, what was happening. And it worked. Simplest thing you possibly do, right? Making it a part of the culture, right, is huge, right? So when you're talking to your TLA candidates, when you're talking to your reps, always talking in terms of metrics, in terms of numbers, right? And starting with the facts, right? Then we can get into the subjective. Let's start with the objective, move towards the subject. Right? Then we can ask questions like, why do you think that's happening? Right? What are some potential reasons why? But we're always basing it off of facts. Sometimes we feel bad and our business actually isn't that bad. Right? We're like, actually, I'm doing a lot better than I thought. It just kind of felt like things were getting out of it. It's like, yeah, chill. You run a facts-based business, things work. And of course, that's a good to great principle, right? People who are willing to take a hard look at the truths, take a hard look at what's really happening in the business, and look for the squiggly words underneath the rocks. and make decisions based off of hard data, right? So first off, you have to have the systems to create the data, collect the data. I was talking to a DM that I was coaching. They didn't log any of their recruiting numbers. Like, they just weren't using Vector Live. They were basically just like, we'll just put our stats in when someone shows up to training. I'm like, how can you possibly be efficient with your data and your stats if you're not using Vector Live efficiently? So, we got to be doing these sorts of things. Okay, so that's basically it. I think we're really hitting the timing perfectly. We got a couple minutes for Q&A. So let's just, just love to just understand what are some questions that are popping up for you guys right now, or just ideas.
So yeah, the question: how do you know you're being way too, specific with the KPIs?
Yeah. You're like a very detail-oriented person, right? So,
yesterday I was planning for next year, and I broke it down like my average percentage for the past 3 years, what I've shipped this summer, and the breakdown of how those.
Yeah. So
and then I did that monthly, and then I thought about doing it weekly, but I was hour.
Monday between 10 and 12.
It's literally like I showed it to Mike yesterday, like a 20-page Excel sheet with graphs and everything.
Sure, and that's great. And I think that ranges are really helpful, especially with planning. Right? So, I like to have ranges, maybe even overlapping ranges, but kind of like a worst case scenario, what's most likely to happen, and the best case scenario is a really good practice for planning. Right? What's most likely to happen, and then what's the worst case, what's the best case, month over month, right? At least when you're planning the year, and then when you get to the month, or you get a couple months out week over week, especially in the summer, you can go a little bit more detailed, like week over week. Right? If you're getting to day by day in your business, doesn't really make much sense, right? Week over week is probably the most detailed you can get. Other questions?
So where do I start? I mean, that was awesome. I mean, there was so much content, Andrew. Like, wow. I'd love to know from anyone in this room, like, where do you start? Where are you beginning? That could give me some level of direction, because like I absorb a lot of the content, and I'm like, cool. Then I need the help taking the next step. So
it's a good question. One of the things I think that I'll be around a little bit tomorrow, but so if anyone wants to chat with me after this or tomorrow, I'm going to be around.
I'll pay you to talk to you next week. So.
But Mike, he's here for free.
Oh, yeah. That's true.
But what I would say is, you guys also collectively have extra time, right? You guys are going to be heading down to Olean and all this. Like, take that time to continue to chat about some of these concepts. I'm sure you guys are going to be hammering some details out. But also take some time to yourself, whether it's tonight or it's early morning tomorrow, or at some point, make sure you get to leave this weekend with your 3 action items, something like that. The 3 most important action items, and the other is really cool content that you're going to implement at some point. Something like that. Andrew?
Yeah, just to add to that, so Monday, at least for all the millionaire DMs, when we're at the factory, we're doing Breakout, doing a round table. So we have an agenda for it already, but one of the things that we'll be having, it was kind of already planned, but more specific after this talk, is we're just going to list out, we'll have a brainstorm together of everything in our business that we have that's not systemized right now, or that we're doing and we're operating. We don't have a documentation for it, we don't have systemization for it. We'll get them all up on the board, and then we can, some of the stuff's going to have to be your own office stuff, because there's nuances, but things that are more regional programs, things that everyone should be doing, we'll rank them by what's the most important for us to get done here in the future, and then we'll also delegate hey, everyone can take 1 or 2 things maybe to have done by the end of the year. And so everyone has 2 months, so we're going into 2020, we have a lot more kind of systems and programs created coming out of that meeting. So that'll help.
Anything else, or should we start heading over?
Anything else from anybody?
Cool. Well, thank you guys. I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. Hopefully you guys got some good stuff. And
honest, a couple of things. I took tons of notes. That was a deep dive on culture. That was a deep dive on systems in a way that we haven't deep dove in the past. Everybody, we will have about 20 minutes tomorrow to do some sharing of top nuggets. I'm just going to ask you overnight to be thinking about some of these things. And then those of you that are really development teams, there will be a breakout in Olean to dive into these things further. We're not done hearing from Andrew, by the way. He's our keynote speaker tonight, so we're going to let him eat for about 45 minutes, and we're going to throw him back up on the stage for another 45 to 50 to impact our people tonight as well. Guys, we'll need to be back. We're going to go straight to dinner. We'll be back in general